All right, all right, all right. Welcome back to Shoot Your Shot. I'm Claire.
I'm Georgia, and today we have a special guest that we are so excited about. Welcome, Max.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
Shoot your shot.
Shoot your shot.
We're stoked you're here. Max, is it Max Lowenstein? Lowenstein?
Lowenstein. Yeah.
Lowenstein.
Okay.
Yeah. Mostly go by Max Low. I think that's what people know me as.
Oh, you go by
'Cause
Max
they can't
Low?
pronounce-
Really?
No, Max Low. But yeah, my name is Maxwell.
Okay.
Yeah. No, my
Okay,
actual
okay.
name is Maxwell, though. So yeah.
Got you. Okay, cool. Well, I'm super stoked that you're here. I know Max from LSKD. We were in the same creator team for like 2 or 3 years. We actually met in person in Costa Rica. We went on a fun trip with LSKD in January of 2021, so exactly 2 years ago, which is crazy. And yeah, super stoked to have Max on. Max, born and raised in the Bay Area. We know him as an incredibly talented photographer and videographer, especially in the lifestyle, travel, and automotive world. I really want to dive into everything you do with cars because you have worked with some incredible brands. Hyundai, I think I've seen Bronco, I've seen like Toyota. Like I always see you shooting the coolest freaking cars in the most wild places, whether it's like a waterfall or like snow or the desert. Like you do the cool stuff with cars, so I'm excited to dive into that. And you also won Adorama's Landscape Photographer of the Year 2019, which is super cool. I want to chat about that in Microsoft's Original by Design Art Competition 2021. So you are a very accomplished creator, and we are very lucky to have
research.
you.
Yes.
Welcome,
Yeah.
Max.
Thanks, guys. No, I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's cool.
I first want to dive into everything with your work, and especially in the automotive world, I feel like that's just your talent really shines in the car world. So like tell us a little bit more about how you are this fantastic car shooter and how you even got involved in like that side of the industry.
Yeah, the car stuff is actually pretty new. So like a little bit of a background. I started with photography shooting like kind of like landscapes and then into cityscapes. I started photography in like 2017, and by 2018, I moved to New York City to pursue it full time. And the whole time I was in New York, I was like a street shooter, like getting into street photography and cityscapes. And then when I came back to California is when it came, during COVID, it became a lot more like shooting like travel, shooting cars. And the car stuff was actually the most recent. I would say I started doing the car work in 2021. I think I had like Toyota reach out to me or something because they liked my landscape images and the stuff I'd been posting. And I just started picking up work with Toyota, and I was like, whoa, like getting cars delivered to my house that are like brand new, some of them unreleased.
So sick.
It was super cool. Yeah, it was like a big jump. It was a big difference from working with like lifestyle brands and jumping into like, oh, cool, this like company's delivering me like a $70,000 truck that isn't out yet. And then I got to take that truck. That was Toyota. I got to take the truck to Alabama Hills and brought on a videographer with me who's super talented, my friend Kane. We shot this whole video and did like a little production for him. And I feel like that was like one of my first steps into the car world. And then it just started kind of rolling from there. Once you realize you like something and you start like pitching it, it becomes obviously a lot more like it keeps happening, right? Like if you keep landing the gigs and stuff like that, but I just never thought to do it. So I never really reached out to cars before until I had my first opportunity to do it.
Amazing.
Were you always into cars? Like, was that a thing that you
Not even,
thought?
no.
Oh, really?
No, and it got me into cars though. Like now I'm super into cars. But when I started, like I thought cars were cool. Obviously, like I always wanted like a truck. And working with it was like when the Toyota Tundras, like I did a complete redesign and they look like totally different now. I got to work with like their TRD Tundra before it released, and like that made me obsessed. It had like the camo accents on the seats and like details around the car were like camouflage, and it was like big off-road tires and lifted and stuff. And I don't know, it got me hooked on like, okay, like I really like trucks. I went through this whole phase with trucks. Then I started getting into other brands. I ended up working with Mazda, did a little stuff for Jaguar.
Ooh.
Yeah, that was more of like dealership, less like the actual corporate. But and then now I landed my client Hyundai, and I've been working with them like pretty much all of this year. I've been exclusive with them, just ongoing projects. And then their cars are super slept on though, because I never thought I'd be like a Hyundai fanboy. And no, their cars are like really nice and like really fun to drive, and They've sent me on some really cool trips, and overall, probably the best client I've ever had. Like
Wow.
the actual people that work for the company are so cool, which makes me want to do more work for them. But yeah, no, I would say getting into car photography actually just sparked my interest, and now I really like shooting cars and stuff. But
That's so funny. On the way back to my parents' house today, there was a Hyundai behind me. And I was like, wait, that car looks kind of nice for a Hyundai. And it was
I
like
know, right?
so sleek and like it almost looked like a Tesla from the front in a way. And I was like, when did Hyundai get so like nice and crispy
I
and
know,
like
right?
it looked like a luxury car, but it was a Hyundai. And I was like, damn,
Yeah.
okay, Hyundai, go off.
I know.
That's
I think
awesome.
I was actually talking to like their like one of the high ups at Hyundai. And he was telling me that they branded themselves in the beginning as like the affordable car for people. So they're trying to get out of this reputation that Hyundais are just cheap cars and there's like nothing special about them. And they haven't been like just cheap made like crappy cars for a while. They've been branching into like the nicer car world, but I think they hold that like title as having like cheaper cars. So they're
Right.
trying to get themselves out of that by producing more sports cars, like their inline cars, and then producing more just like you said, sleeker, like more luxury looking cars. And they're doing like a really good job because they're still like pretty affordable cars. Everyone in my family, because they see me driving them all the time, like I'm always working with different Hyundais. Everyone in my family wants me to get them like a deal on a new Hyundai. I'm pretty
No
sure my whole
way.
family's gonna go out and buy Hyundais by next year.
Is
Yeah.
that what you drive? Is that your current car or do you have a truck?
I actually just have a motorcycle and
Oh,
like an old Subaru essentially, and I never
okay.
drive. I ride the motorcycle over summer. I never drive the Subaru because I have Hyundais like all the time. So like right now, I'm having a launcher outside my house, but it's Hyundais.
Wow.
It's not my actual car. I've
That's
been
so
putting
sick.
off buying a car for a long time because Hyundai's just been giving me cars all year essentially.
Yeah, why would you buy a car? You like got a new
Yeah,
one coming in every month and you get to try
yeah.
out
Like
new different
I just
types.
haven't needed
Like,
it.
yeah,
Yeah.
amazing.
Well, okay, so then I have a question on that. So when they send you cars to shoot, like, do they just send you one and you have it for a month? Do you have it for 3 months? Do you have to have it for a year? Are you constantly just literally swapping in and out of new cars every month? How does that work?
So it definitely depends. I feel like if I'm doing a campaign that other creators are on, they give you like a set timeline. But I'm like really cool with the guy who's in charge of like giving the cars. And I always ask him like, hey, if I have it for like an extra month, can I send you a couple more photos or post an additional like photo on my Instagram of the car? And he's usually super cool. And he'll extend my timeline unless they need the car back for like a commercial or anything like that. But if the car is not being used for any type of marketing thing, they've been pretty chill about like how long I can have it. And that depends on the company,
Wow.
right? Because these cars are coming from the same like I want to say agency. I'm pretty sure they're an agency, drive shop. They handle like the car deliveries and a lot of these campaigns for like multiple car companies. I was connected with them through Toyota and through Mazda at some point. But yeah, as long as like the client themselves is like willing to give you the car longer, they'll do it. But it always just depends on the client and like what they're willing to
That's
give
so
you.
fun.
But
You're
yeah,
just
they deliver them right
constantly
to your
like
house
having the
too.
best of the best.
Yeah, I found one car that I really liked from Hyundai, and then I basically asked for it back in November if I could just have it until whenever they need it back. And he's like, "Yeah, we don't need it back till sometime in February, so just take it." So I've
Wow.
had the same car for the
Wow.
last like 3 or 4 months now.
That's
Yeah,
so sick. I love
yeah, it's
that.
really fun.
So from what I've seen on your Instagram and your website, you tend to shoot all the car content in like really beautiful locations, beautiful landscapes. And I know that you said that's kind of like your OG work was shooting landscape photography. And you actually always shoot, I mean, from what I can see, you're always shooting with your girlfriend Tasha, which I think is so cute. And she's always like your model in frame. Tell us more about that. Like, did you just love traveling and you started taking photos, or like was your girlfriend always your model in the photos? How did you get into the landscape stuff?
Yeah, it was actually all her. So Natasha,
Really?
yeah, we started dating when I lived in New York, and we did distance because she was here in California. And she was like, she's not a city girl. She's like, would never live in San Francisco, would never live in New York. Like she likes, she wants to get like a piece of land at some point, but like we're just here in the Bay Area because of her job. She's a full-time pediatric nurse. But it was actually her that like, she wanted to go on more trips with me. Like when I would come back and visit her from New York, she's like, hey, let's go on a road trip to Oregon or something like that. And I was like super down for it. And so she kind of pulled me more so into like the travel world because I was getting pretty caught up into like just shooting cityscapes and like street photography at the time. Like I said, I did landscapes like before New York, and then New York kind of changed me into like a city boy. I feel like you kind of adapt to your environment, you know? And then she started pulling me on these trips and I loved it. And so like we started planning trips all the time. And then 2020 hit, I moved home from New York and we went on, because you couldn't really travel anywhere. We just went on like road trips and car camped. We went basically all over the US. And that gave me the idea. I was like, wow, I should start working for like travel boards and stuff like that. And so like I really honed in on travel photography and like travel content creation. And then when it came to shoot cars, I just basically put cars in like landscapes and stuff that I already wanted to shoot, if that makes sense. Like
Yeah.
I'm like looking at the car as the focus point now, but I still put it in a place that's like a pretty landscape spot. You know what I mean? So I started taking cars to like, I did a really cool shoot on the Salt Flats in Utah.
Oh,
And we took
I love
we
that
took on the
place.
Mazdas. Yeah, right. It's super
Everything looks
photogenic.
just so beautiful there.
I know. Even when there's no water and there's like no reflection, it's like just a really cool place to shoot cars because you have that like white foreground and it looks
Yeah.
good. And we ended up getting like a good sunset. So the Mazda photos ended up coming out super good. And long story short, it was actually the Mazda photos that I did like 2 years prior to working with Hyundai that led me to getting work with Hyundai, which was really cool. That drive shop, that agency I had mentioned, they, I guess they recommended me to the client for like a campaign after I had shown them Mazda photos. So yeah,
That's
basically
awesome.
taking mixing in my landscape work with my car work. It's been like really fun.
No, I was just saying, I love that it shows, well, one, how seriously you take your work, but also it shows that, like, work ethic within a project, even if it seems, I mean, not that shooting for Mazda is not a big deal, but even if it's just, like, an NBD job, you can open so many doors with just doing a good job, and
Oh,
it's
yeah.
so cool that, like, shooting for another car brand led you to, like, one of the best car brands for you, and, like, working with them, I mean, pretty much like not necessarily full time, but like consistently for a long time. So, I mean, applause to you, but that's also like a great, a great shout out for people to like do a good job on every job because you
Yeah.
never know like what it's going to open for you.
Well, I should
Exactly.
also mention that like not that Mazda isn't a cool brand to shoot for, but the shoot that I did for them was unpaid. So like they gave me a
okay.
car to
Oh.
go on like an 8-day road trip, and we just like instead of paying for a rental car, I was like, yeah, like if you give me a car, I'll send you in some photos, and it ended up being some like my favorite car photos. Even now, they're still some of the
Wow.
best I've taken, and so it was technically unpaid. It was a trade, but yeah, and then it led me to Hyundai, which has been probably my highest paying client of the year. So yeah, it does absolutely like do your best work even on stuff that you're shooting for free. You never know where it's going to lead you.
Right. And then did you reach out to Mazda or did you reach out to that agency, that shop thing? Like, how did you get in touch with Mazda to get a car?
Someone from Drive Shop reached out to me on behalf of Mazda. They're
Got
like,
you.
hey, we'd
Okay.
like love to get you a car, have you go out and shoot. And I said, what's your budget? And they're like, oh, we don't really have a budget as of right now, which I've learned over time that's like complete. That's not true. Like a car company
Yes.
telling me you don't really have a
Yeah.
budget right now,
Yeah.
but want to work with like a creator is like
Yeah.
absolute trash. But you live and you learn. At that moment, I was like, oh, cool, like free car for a little while. And I was coming off doing like Toyota campaigns that were also like kind of underpaid. I didn't know them at the time, but as you develop as like a creator and stuff, you realize like what you're worth. So I was like, okay, like it's not, not the worst. I need a car for this trip anyways. Like I can easily get them some cool photos. And then I ended up putting so much energy into shooting. Like I was washing the car like at least like 6 times. I paid to wash the car on the trip just to keep it looking good. So it was always like photo ready. And it was all for like a free shoot. But
Yeah.
like I said, it totally
off.
paid off in the end, like 2 years later. So yeah.
Love that.
So I want us to come back and touch on the whole like brands obviously have a budget thing, but to
Yeah.
go quickly back to you shooting the cars and different landscapes, just in general, what kind of preparation goes into those shoots? Because you just mentioned you even washed it like 6 times during the whole trip to make sure it looked good. Like what are your steps? Like where does your mind kind of go when you're about to go shoot for a car, whatever the company may be?
So nothing actually super crazy when I'm setting up car shoots. It's more, I'd say the most important thing for me has been like location scouting. Like where do I want to shoot the car? What kind of vibe am I going for? What kind of vibe does the company want from me? Is it more luxury? Is it more like adventure vibes? You know what I mean? So that like all kind of changes the location in which I shoot and like the people in which I shoot with. Even though most of the time it's like free reign on who to shoot with and they're not really like expecting me to like hire out models. Which is something like I've never really had to do too much with my work, surprisingly, hire out models. That's why Natasha ends up modeling a lot of my stuff. But yeah, nothing crazy. I just like to keep the cars cleaned. I usually keep rags with me to help them like stay clean in whatever angle I'm shooting the car. Just because like yeah, I can go in Photoshop and clean it later, but it's so much extra work I
So
have to
much
do.
more work.
Yeah.
So much more. Like every little
Yeah.
bug that's on the car,
Yeah.
I'll zoom in and take it out when I could just like spend 5 minutes just detailing the car before I do a shoot, and it's like I don't have to do any of that extra legwork. But yeah, keeping the car cleaned and location scouting, and then over time learned that like CP filters are super important when shooting cars. It kills all the reflections coming off like the windshield and stuff like that in the windows. I did
That's a good
my
tip.
most recent Hyundai shoot. I did not have a CP filter with me, and I was so frustrated. But it only bothered me for like one image out of the whole set I did, so it ended up being okay. But yeah, it's nothing crazy. It depends what level you're shooting the car at, and like what the project idea is. But yeah, if you're just going out and you're shooting cars like natural light, in a cool environment, you don't need anything crazy. I will say I have to bring a team on when I'm trying to shoot roller photos, which I love doing. I love getting those action shots where you're hanging out of a different car, and you have someone else driving the main car that you're photographing. Both cars are moving. You set your shutter speed kind of lower, so you get the blur of like the background. It looks like the car is like got some speed and action to it. I do love those photos. It's just harder to do because I have to be working with the team. And if I'm in
Right.
like Utah and I'm traveling, I'm usually just with Natasha.
Okay, so question for Natasha. So she models for you like a lot. Like that's your go-to model, obviously, and she's like stunning. So I don't blame you. She's beautiful. But
Hey,
does she get a cut out of these budgets when you guys work together? Because she's putting in some work, Like how do you guys like collaborate as artists as well, or like do you just be like, hey, I'm always gonna shoot you like $200, or like how does that work with shooting your girlfriend all the time?
so it differs on what the campaign is, but when we started, no. Like she was just happy being in the photos because she wanted stuff to post. She thought it was cool. She does not like give a shit about Instagram anymore. Like she got to 20K and she's like, oh, I'm kind of over it. Like I like my job. Like I'm not trying to be an influencer or anything.
I love that.
So that's why her account's been kind of stagnant. And I've been like, dude, you grew to 20K so fast. Like you could grow this. I literally take photos of you anyways and like give you the edited images. But when we started, it was like, she just liked being in the photos. And then the job started becoming more demanding. I'd be like, hey, can you like take a day off work to come and do the shoot with me? And then like she's like losing money to go help me make money, so it only makes sense to pay her. And then I also like factor in the fact that like when I'm working with brands now, I try and get a higher rate because especially if I know she has to be on the project, I will like budget that in. Like, hey, these are our rates because like Natasha's coming. I don't tell the client this, but like I'm bringing my girlfriend. She has to miss work, and I pay her in different ways. Like she spent like $1,000 on clothes for like our last shoot to get like clothes she liked for a
Oh my
shoot.
gosh.
And then she was happy with me just paying for all of her clothes. So like she just
Creator
got, like,
love
new
language.
wardrobe. Yeah, right. She got a whole new wardrobe just to come and the experience ended up being like super cool too. We got to stay at this like super nice lodge, and it was like a 5-star. All the food and drinks were included. She didn't have to obviously pay her travel, so she didn't have to spend any money. Got 3 days at like a 5-star hotel, and then like $1,000 worth of new clothes. So it depends though. Sometimes I just give her money. Like we figure out a rate together. Try and definitely keep it fair. But I do all the emailing, like basically everything business wise, and then I just plop her into photos, and then she just kills it as a model. But I will say when we do road trips though, like our own trips, or if we're going to like any international trip, she does like all the planning, like where we should go shoot. She's like an expert planner, and I've been telling her to make maps and like itineraries and sell them because she's really good
smart.
at planning awesome trips and like finding the best places. She's really good at finding those spots where you're like, dang, like no one's geotagging this spot. Like I really want to find it. She's like super good at digging, and she's able to like randomly somehow come across the spot that you're looking for.
I love
Makes it
that.
really
That's
nice.
a
one of,
superpower.
That's literally
I know,
one of
right?
the loves of my life is going on Google Maps and finding crazy places to shoot that like aren't tagged. And
Yep.
I do that especially when I travel overseas. You can find the crazy stuff that no one's shot at. And like I spent hours on Google Maps just like
Yeah.
zooming in and like pushing through and zooming into another town. It's so fun. That's
That's
really
so
cool.
funny.
We've done hours of that too.
Yeah, that's so good. I love that. Okay, so real quick, Georgia, I don't even like bring this up to you, but we should do two truths and a lie with Max because usually we do it at the beginning of the episode, but we're just gonna like throw it in the middle of this episode.
Yes.
So we do this segment with every guest, two truths and a lie, very self-explanatory. This is your time to flex your achievements or to like talk about funny things that have happened in your career, but give us two things that you've actually accomplished or done, or two projects you've loved, and then one that's untrue, and then we will pick, or we will try to figure out which one is the lie.
Okay, so the first one is I shot for Apple for 2 years. The second one is I dunked my camera in the ocean while shooting a sunset. And the third one is I filmed a snowboarding campaign for a week with a broken shoulder from snowboarding.
With a what controller?
A broken shoulder.
Oh, a broken shoulder. Okay.
From snowboarding. Mm-hmm. Wait, what was the first one again?
Apple.
I shot for Apple for 2 years.
Oh, okay.
I think the first one is a lie. I've never, unless it was like forever ago, I've never seen you post about that. I have a feeling the ocean one is true. No, don't. Let's see what Georgia says.
I'm going to say the ocean. I feel like you probably did record something with a broken shoulder, and you probably did work for Apple. I'm thinking maybe you worked for Apple like before you were really like a creator, because I feel like Apple's a place to work in New York, and you lived in New York. I'm going with number 2.
Oh, you're thinking that he was literally like
an
at the
Apple
Genius
guy.
Bar.
Yes,
he was
that's
working
what
at
I'm
the Genius
thinking.
Bar. Okay,
That's what I'm
That's
thinking.
not what I
I
meant.
was
No,
thinking-
that's not what I meant.
Okay.
I thought you were trying to trick us.
All right, do we?
I mean, I am trying to trick you.
Is that our final answers, Georgia? You said the
Number
second one,
2,
I said
the
first
ocean.
one. Okay, I'm saying number 1, Apple.
All right. Claire got it. That was a lie. I did shoot for Samsung.
Yes!
I shot for Samsung for 2 years.
Damn.
That's good.
Okay. I was gonna say I
Yeah.
feel like I would have seen that.
I know,
seen
right?
Apple somewhere.
That's why I
in
was
his
like, I knew you were
portfolio.
gonna catch this one because I feel like Apple would have been one I'd been pushing like crazy. But I mean, when I did Samsung, it was like 2017 to early 2019. So it was like before I was even like, before I even feel like I fully knew what I was doing. You know what I mean?
That's impressive. Shooting for
That is
Samsung
They were my
impressive.
first client.
before feeling like you knew what you were doing.
Yeah, no,
I know.
they were my first client, and they were the first company to start sending me places to like shoot photos for them.
Wow.
I got to have I had dinner with Peter McKinnon, which was like,
nice.
at the time, he was like my complete idol. He's the guy that like taught me photography. And so I'm like sitting next to him, trying not to fanboy him, you know?
Fangirl.
That's so funny.
Yeah, but
Is
did
he
a
cool?
lot
Do
of
we
work.
like Peter
Oh my
McKinnon?
God. So I've heard things that from other people that don't like him. No, my interaction with him was so good. He was like the same guy on YouTube as he was at this dinner. He was super nice, like super funny.
Oh, nice.
But he was really, really quiet. 'Cause
Was it
you'd
just
think
you
watching
and
his
him?
YouTube. No, it was like a creator dinner, but
okay.
lady who was like my boss from Samsung knew
Mm-hmm.
I was obsessed with Peter McKinnon. So when it came to like the seating arrangement, she put me right next to him. So I was talking to him like the whole dinner. Yeah.
For a second, I just was envisioning like you and Peter just like face
No,
to face eating
no.
dinner. I was like, that's pretty
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah, we just went and got
intimidating.
dinner, just us two. It was a date. Yeah.
And you're like, he was really quiet. You didn't say much.
Yeah.
She was
It was
eating in
kinda awkward.
silence.
Yeah.
That's so
Yeah.
funny. Okay, so you've worked with a lot of crazy big brands. Obviously, you just said your first client ever was Samsung, which is like such a flex. Go off. One of the main reasons I want to have you on the podcast is because you have posted some wild stuff on your close friends on Instagram, talking a little bit of trash about these like really bad brands who just try to use creatives, who have no respect for creatives, who are trying to like screw over creatives, like get free work, and even worse than that. And you've posted so many crazy emails that you've gotten, and just like ridiculous conversations you've had with people at brands where you're like, this is a job. You can't ask me to like do this entire massive campaign for free. So I want to dive into that, and I don't know exactly like where you want to start with that. If there's like a general analysis of like having received, you know, at this point dozens and dozens of emails from these brands that are trying to take advantage of you. But what's your take on that? Like tell us more about your experience with that and like how that makes you feel.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough because I feel like a lot of these emails that come from these brands that are like asking me to do something for pretty much for free or just super underpaid, like that stuff I probably would have been excited by in my first year of photography. You know what I mean? Like when you're starting out, you kind of see those emails and it's cool. But like when you're going on like year 6 of doing it like full time, you start to realize that like this is like super messed up to send somebody, because it's like, this is my full-time job. Like, I don't know if you think I just post on Instagram for fun. And I'm sure it gets confusing, because I'm sure there are people out there who do this just for fun and maybe they aren't trying to really make money from it. But to me, this is like 1,000% a business. Like there's no one really watches live TV anymore. The marketing budget is not in commercials on television. It's with like pretty much influencer marketing for the most part. And so there is budgets for it. Like I said with the car stuff, when the car company told me there was no budget, it's like, it's ridiculous. You're a massive company and you're like trying to just have like a professional photographer come out, spend their own money trying to get to your place or whatever and shoot photos for you. But I feel like the one you're thinking of that like made you think of me was the this hotel in San Diego. I don't even know what brand it was, but some hotel sent me an email and they wanted me to come to their hotel, stay for 3 days, and they wanted me to deliver 40 commercial licensed images that they wanted to own. And then they, like this whole email was ridiculous. They wanted like the 40 images, they wanted some videos, whatever, in return for like a 2 to 3 night stay. And they would also give me like $100 food credit.
And they weren't paying for like your flight out there? Like,
no.
So they wanted you to like drive or fly on your own? That's crazy.
Yeah. And like I read this message and like literally laughed out loud. And that's why I screenshotted it and I put it out there, because it was just so ridiculous. And she sent a follow-up and she's like, oh, by the way, I forgot to add, like we also want like a social media post, like 1 feed post and 3 stories, like on top of the 40 images. And I was like, what's your budget for this? Like,
are you insane?
Like, yeah. Like, I was just like, I knew they weren't going to offer me any money, but I played around with it and I was like, what's your budget? And they basically were like, well, we don't really have a budget, but we can offer you like more compensation, like more trade. And so she's like willing to give me like 5 nights free. And I was like, you realize like I'm not homeless. Like I live in a house. Like I don't need,
I was just gonna say,
I don't need shelter at your fucking hotel, like to go there and shoot photos and post on my social media and stuff for you. And it was super ridiculous, but ended up like being so salty about that one, because I was like, that is such a wild ask. Like I told her in my email back, I was like, hey, so I live 8 hours away. So you want me to drive down there? It's going to be 2 driving days. Then I have to stay at your hotel for 3 nights, which is not like a luxury to me. Like I have to stay there.
It's more of an inconvenience.
Yeah. Right. Like it's to shoot your property. I have to stay there. It's not like, oh goody, I get to stay at a hotel. Like I love being home. And so no, it was super ridiculous. And so I screenshotted that whole conversation and put it on there. But basically she ended up ghosting me when I was like, yeah, typically I would do this for like no less than like 10K and then have like my travel and stuff paid for. Like commercial images are expensive. And she wanted 40 of them.
Yeah.
And then a social media post, which like I also have my own rates for. So it's like, yeah, I don't know, it was ridiculous. And like I see a lot of companies doing that, but usually they're like smaller clients, I feel like, not like hotels. And so when a hotel does it, or a company that should have a huge marketing budget, it's a little ridiculous. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What's crazy to me is the like licensing the photos so that they own the rights to the images. Like that is so expensive. Like that is that, to be honest, super successful photographers, that's how they make their money. Is they license photos. It's not necessarily they're getting paid for a campaign or they're getting paid for a post. It's like they're licensing each photo for like $7,000. And so to ask for 40 for free is mental. Like you're mentally deranged if you think someone's going to give you that for free. But also this just has to bring up to the table, like, why do they feel comfortable doing that? And like my immediate reaction is like, well, because so many people say yes to that. So they know that like someone's going to say yes to it eventually. So in my brain, that's like, oh, is that why they feel so comfortable asking for so much? Is it because, like, do you think that's because there's so many smaller creators who are willing to do the work for free?
I do think that's probably a huge problem with our industry. I think there's a lot of young, like talented creators out there that don't know the business side of what we're doing. And so when they get these cool opportunities, they're like, oh yeah, like I can add this to my portfolio, whatever. And what it does, like, yeah, cool. Like you get to add some images to your portfolio, say you worked for this brand. And I'm not always opposed to working for free. I think it's more about just knowing the boundary between like when you're absolutely getting used and also like hurting the industry, as opposed to like building your portfolio. And I feel like if someone took that job and went and like did this job, gave them great photos and stuff, this company now believes that they can get this work for free, and they don't, like, marketing doesn't need to be paid for, influencers don't need to be paid for, and like it just devalues the whole industry. And like, you can't stop like the whole world from doing that, right? Like everyone, all the creators out there from doing it. But I think just more so like putting a spotlight on it and being like, hey, like, know your worth. Like whether you have 2,000 followers or
Exactly.
5,000 followers or 100,000 followers, like it doesn't matter. Like if you're a talented creator and you have like good work, it costs money. Like what you're doing, what you create costs money. Like it doesn't matter where you post it, where you put it. Like it's just about like, you spent this time learning a craft and you spent this time investing into gear, and then you just go and create these like awesome images for free or for like trade. It's just not worth it. I feel like a lot of people are getting played, and even me getting offers like this is like ridiculous. When I like I don't want to sound braggy at all, but I have like a stacked portfolio that I built up over the years. And so when companies reach out to me and they're like, hey, we want you to do this for trade or for free, I send them my media kit. And I was like, look at the brands I've worked for. None of these people, I did it for free. So like this is kind of my rate, and you can either take it or leave it.
Exactly.
And I had like recent beef. It's funny that you bring this up because I had like very recent beef with a client. Probably my worst experience ever.
Ooh, tell us.
Give us
with
the
a client
tea.
that it was a client that I actually wanted to work for. I'm not going to say names. I will say it's a beverage company.
Okay.
Who you guys have definitely heard of. And they basically like, I got connected to him because my the manager of my gym, his dad is like very high up in the company. He got in contact with me, and he would email me and be like, hey, like there's 3 different routes like we would love to work with you in. One, like we're looking for a crew to film a full-on commercial, like big budget commercial. And I was like, perfect. I got a team in LA, like they would love to do this. 2 was like they wanted website images. They were like more expensive than like buying them for website usage was going to be more expensive. They had a higher budget for this. Anything they were revamping on the website, higher budget. And then option 3 was the lowest budget, but they work with photographers who send in like a monthly batch of photos and a reel. And basically I was trying to do the top 2. And I went to LA, met with this team of really good creators. And they were super on board, got back to them, and like, had the meeting with them and everything, tried to get him on a phone call about filming the commercial. And basically he was like, oh, you know what? Actually, like we're just going to use the same people we used last time. And I was like, okay, cool. Thanks for wasting the time there. And then option 2 of shooting the website images, he basically backed out on that one too. And he's like, you know what? Like with our current budget, let's just stick to like option 3 and just have you send in like a monthly batch of photos every month. And so I went out and shot him like really good sample images. This was also super annoying. I don't shoot sample images for clients. Like
Did they ask for them?
Yes.
Okay.
They asked me to shoot sample
How many?
images. Just he didn't give me a specific number. I ended up sending 12. Like because every month a batch of photos was 10. I threw in like 2 extra. But it was
And this was
frustrating
unpaid.
because
Like he was like, I want a sample unpaid.
yeah. Well,
before
he
you
first
actually
asked me
get
for
it.
sample images with their bottle, and I was like, hey, like I can send you whatever you want for sample images. Like I've shot for other companies that have a bottle in it. Like, yeah, it's not your bottle, but like you can basically see what
but
I'm
it's
going to
a
do
good
for you.
enough
My
example.
lifestyle images.
Yeah.
Just look at my Instagram. Like you
Right,
can see
yeah.
what I'm going to do for you. And he was like, no, like the team really likes to see like our bottle in the shots to know if we like the types of photos. Yeah, super strange, right?
Weird.
Hold on
Weird.
Yeah.
Weird.
I was say they can obviously assume.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. But I guess they couldn't. So I started, went out and shot these really good sample photos, and they basically told me like, hey, they're great, but like we're actually changing direction. So I reached out to them to shoot like lifestyle and adventure photos, the stuff that you see on my Instagram. And they're like, oh my God, you're a perfect fit, right? That's what they had been telling me. And then I go out and I shoot sample photos that kind of fit the lifestyle vibe, a little bit of adventure travel. And they were like, these are really good. Like I was expecting them to buy them, but they're like, you know what, we're changing direction and we kind of want a lot more like fitness and like gym stuff. Like, can you shoot that for us? And I was like, sure, okay. And then like a month goes by, I haven't shot their images yet, and they asked me, they were telling me they updated their brief and they want their stuff to be like highly elevated fitness, like Nike and like Aloe Yoga, and they just went in a completely different direction. They keep changing kind of what they want. So like I said before, it was like the travel and adventure stuff like that, exactly what's on my feed. That's what I sent them for the sample images because that's what they asked for. Now they're like, okay, we need like Aloe Yoga, Nike, Lululemon type highly elevated fitness is what they were going for. And I basically told them, I was like, okay, well, this is like pretty low budget. For reference, it was $1,500 for 10 photos and a reel. None of it had to be posted on my account. But again, we're talking 10 commercial images, which this company, again, in their contract, wanted to own the photos in perpetuity. So they have them forever. When I first started, I was told that they wanted the images that were just like on my Instagram, like the travel adventure.
Right.
And now all of a sudden I'm going out of my way to shoot them like stuff, like highly elevated fitness stuff in gyms, which is like not what I had planned on shooting for them. So the only reason I said yes to the budget the first time was because like when I go on trips to Yosemite and I go to all these cool places, I can easily incorporate the water bottle. So I was like, okay, that budget's not bad if I don't have to go out of my way to shoot it. But here I am now, like having to go out of my way to shoot it. So I was like, okay, I was super nice back to her, even though I wanted to be really rude back, but I was super nice. And I was like, okay, like no problem. I guess I misunderstood what you're asking for. I'm not going to hire any talent. I'm not going to like pay money to go into any gyms, essentially is what I was telling her. And I was like, I'm just going to work with what I've got. And I went out and I did a shoot with my brother who was in town. And it was like actually a really good shoot. And the photos were really good. And they were pretty close to not, if not like pretty spot on to the example photos she had sent me, what they were looking for. And she wrote me back last night, basically saying like, you didn't do our brand justice. You didn't do our goal justice. Like, this is not what we wanted. Instead of having you reshoot, like I'd way rather just purchase your sample images that you initially sent us. And I was like, wow.
Oh my gosh. This is giving me PTSD because this is so unfortunately common and that's so disrespectful to a creative. It's just you're wasting someone's time. It's like hiring a lawyer and then being like, just kidding. I'm actually not going to pay you because I decided that I don't like the outcome. That's just not how it works. That's not how it works.
Like a reshoot wasn't even in the contract. Like she didn't give me any feedback on any specific image. And I was like, I sat down with Natasha and I was like, hey, like, because I explained to Natasha, I've never dealt with this. Like I've been doing this for 5 to 6 years now. I've never dealt with like a client who didn't like the photos or at least didn't give me like any sort of feedback on how to fix them. So I'm sitting down with Natasha and I was like comparing my photos to the grid that they had sent me. And I was like, do my photos look that much off? Like from the goal of what they were asking for? And she's like, no, like the lady you're talking to is absolutely insane. And it sounds like she doesn't even know what she wants because you're like this photo, she pointed to one photo that looked exactly like one of the photos she had sent me in the grid. And she's like, yeah, this lady's insane. I would just like not even sell them the images altogether. So she didn't even want me to sell any of my images to her. But I was like, you know what? I'm going to keep it on like good terms, be nice to her, whatever. Cause I'm feeling 2024, maybe I'm feeling a little bit nicer. So I didn't say anything mean back to her or anything, even though I wanted to absolutely torch this lady for like wasting my time. And also the fact that like I was under the understanding that they didn't like my sample images because they weren't gym oriented. And then she goes back to buy the sample images, of course.
That's what I was going to say. I'm confused about. They changed their whole brief, but then wanted to actually buy your sample things. It doesn't even make any sense.
So they want travel adventure photos. Then I shoot them travel adventure photos. Then they want gym photos because they don't want travel adventure photos. Then they don't like the gym photos and they want to buy the travel adventure photos. So I'm like, cool. Thanks for wasting so much of my time.
It's
makes
like
so much sense.
It's like a bipolar spouse or something. It's like,
I've never had a client stress me more. Like by them switching the brief over and over again when I was trying to shoot for them, like it like stressed me out because I was like, okay, like I've already started shooting photos for you, like adventure travel stuff. Like I had that stuff already worked into the set. Now I got to go find like. Luckily, my brother was home. He used to be a fitness model. He was like willing to do it for free because I helped shoot his stuff all the time. So like that was the only reason I even ended up doing it. If my brother wasn't in town, I would have just told her no. I was like, I'm not doing it. Then. Yeah.
Oh, that is so frustrating, Max, but that's so relatable. I'm literally dealing with basically a like almost identical situation with a brand right now. And like same thing, they just emailed me back last night. So I'm like, this makes me feel better. And obviously it sucks, but it's like if all these other creators listening are like, why, like, am I communicating things wrong? Am I not doing a good job? Because it does get to your head. You're like, you said, you're asking Natasha, you're like, did I just not do a good job? Like, did what I create have nothing to do with what they wanted? Like, you start psyching 100%. Yourself out and like gaslighting yourself. And no, the problem is that these people that are behind the brands have absolutely no idea what it takes to create a photo or a video. They don't know. They've never been in our position. They've never been in our shoes. They don't understand anything. And it's so hurtful to so many creators. And I wish that these brands would hire like ex-photographers, ex-directors or cinematographers, or at least like have multiple people that are like, oh, actually I used to do this and I know how the dynamic works between like hiring a model and location scouting. And it's so frustrating, especially with the model thing where they expect this like high quality Nike model and then they don't have a budget for it. I have to deal with that all the time because I do all brand work and it's always with people. And the amount of time a brand's like, oh, we just don't have a budget for the model. And I'm like, great. So I'm going to ask a friend who just wants free photos. She just wants a cute photo of herself, and that's going to be the model. They're not going to be professional. You're not going to get, Emily Ratajkowski vibe in this photo shoot. And then you send them those photos. They're like, this is not the quality we desired. And it's like, you got to put money where your mouth is. That's
exactly what happened too with the whole model thing, because I had mentioned that like in my email where I was asking for more money, I was like, I have to get models and all this stuff. And then she brought up that she's like, hey, in your previous emails, you said like when you're out on your adventures, like you have friends that you could shoot with the bottle, like meaning my girlfriend or my girlfriend could take photos of me, or if we're out and we link with other creators, like they can hold the bottle. And I was like, yeah, like I didn't say this back to her, but she was basically saying that like you can still use your friends, just have your friends come to the gym. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like it's total different, one, a different vibe, and two, like I'm shooting with creators who are already there creating, and like, hey, can I bother you for a photo for 10 seconds? Like hold this bottle. Like some of my friends are willing to do that, even though I don't like asking. But like asking someone to spend time to like come meet me at a gym at some whatever location I've scouted is so different. You know what I mean? Like asking friends to do anything for free and coming from a brand that already has a low budget. And they're like, no models, just ask your friends. It's like the most cheapskate thing like I feel like a brand could do. And that really set me back when they were like, ask your friends. And I was like, none of my friends. First of all the friends like I do the traveling with that I would link up with aren't local to me. You know what I mean? We're not like all leaving from the same place. Like they would have to come in from somewhere to go to the Bay. Like it makes no sense. And this lady, exactly like you said, so many times I've been like, why can't the person in charge of this agency or the marketing at this company have been like a former content creator or photographer? Like what is her experience? Like what is her background? I really wanted to know what this lady's background was, and even having a marketing plan for a company that just changes what they want, like their goals for their marketing. Because everything they asked me for is also so different from their Instagram, like the feed of the actual company. So I was like, dude, this company is like all over the place. I don't know what you guys are doing, but I don't want to be a part of it.
Oh, yeah.
You should look her up on LinkedIn.
So
see what her background is.
I was just like, what's your back? I was so curious. Like not even to be a dick. I was like, what's your background? Because like I feel like you don't fully understand like what's going on here. And no Facebook. No Instagram, no LinkedIn. I was like, all right, red flags.
Sus.
Very sorry for marketing, girl.
Yeah.
Plot twist, it's just like their intern. They just like handed an intern like this random project to test them to see if they know what they're doing.
But I've also like never received like a rude comment from an email or a rude email from a client. And she sent me 2 back to back that were like kind of unwarranted. And I was just like, wow. Like, and I'll be honest, like it did also psych me out, like just what you were saying. It made me think for like a week. Like, I mean, not just the email from last night, but even when she was like arguing budget and trying to tell me that I don't know basically what stuff is worth and to bring my friends on. Like the whole week that this has been going on, I was chatting with my buddy. I don't know if you know Andrew Optics. He's like an insanely good photographer out there in LA. And he's like doing basically the same type of stuff I do, but at a higher level. And he's like one of my good friends, and I was just asking him for advice, and I basically laid out the situation for him, and he's like, bro, honestly, if it were me, like I would not work with them. He's like, this is the type of client that doesn't know what they want, and every time you send in photos to them, they're going to tell you like something's wrong with them. He's been in this experience a lot. But my point of this is that like I feel like sharing these stories because I didn't know anyone who's gone through it, and hearing that you have gone through like a very similar situation is actually like makes me feel so much better and so much more like, okay, like maybe what I'm doing is right. Like I'm not crazy. I'm not like a horrible photographer and it didn't just like mess up their entire like shoot or whatever. It's just actually like sometimes we get bad clients who don't really know what they're doing, you know?
Yeah. No, 100%. You have no idea. Hearing you say all this is so like, it's like therapy for me because I'm literally going through the exact same thing, Max, right now with the client where I made a mood board. I shot the photos. It's same thing. I showed a couple friends and I was like, are my photos that different? They're like, it looks like the mood board are your photos and that your photos are the mood board. Like it's the same thing. And I was like, am I going crazy? Like they were like, we're so disappointed in these photos. And no, it's not an us problem. It's not a creative problem.
It's not you.
It's the brand. And unfortunately, it's the person behind the brand who doesn't know the dynamic of being a creator. They just don't get it. They don't understand how anything works. They understand how taking a photo, hiring a model, getting a location, like emulating an edit, like they just don't understand, and they have something in their head that they're not able to translate onto a piece of paper or an email, because like you just have to know how to do it in order to like tell someone how to do it and like what you want. That's why like good directors in like movies or commercials, like they're a good director because they've been in every single person's shoes. They've been the DP, they've been the AC, they've been the PA, and they know how every single job works. And so it's
100%.
definitely not a creator thing, it's a brand thing. And unfortunately it happens in like small and big brands. It happens a lot less in big brands. Like big brands usually have a fantastic team with people who comes from all types of jobs, and they're usually very creative and they know what it takes. But it's like that middle brand who's like got some success, but they're not like Nike yet, but they're also not like a small business. Those are always the ones that like screw me over the most. And I'm like, I'm done with these middle brands. I'm like, I want a small brand or a big brand. No more of these middle brands.
Yeah, your work is insanely good. So I know for a fact, just knowing your previous work, that it's the client. It's not whatever you shot with them.
This was definitely the
probably the magic. Yeah,
I was gaslighting myself. I was like,
Yeah.
I'm bad at taking photos. Like, I don't know how to read people's mood boards. Like, I was like, something is wrong. Like, I haven't been working hard enough. And then hearing you say that, I'm like, man, that is not my fault.
No, my brain went to the same place though. Like, it's weird. Like, it affected me so much, and I was like, because I've just never experienced it. And I've experienced like a client not like loving the photos, and then I go and I reshoot them, whatever to do to make them happy. But like the rudeness and just like, no, these basically like you missed completely. Like, this sucks. We're going to buy your original images. Like, I've never had something like that. And I was just like, wow. And so, the past week, totally thought it was me. But although I'm not glad it happened to you, I am glad to know that, like, it's, this actually happens to people, like, more often,
I bet so many creators are probably like, me. This has happened to me, So, it sucks.
So true.
And, like, going off of that, how do you handle reshoots? Because sometimes even I'm confused, like, do I do a reshoot? Because then I'm not getting paid for, like, the original shoot. Like, there's always that really awkward, like, middle ground of, like, if it is a good client and, like, maybe they didn't understand you, but you see a potential with them, it's like, do you do a reshoot? Like, how do you guys handle that, Like, do you ask to get paid for the original or only 50% and then you get paid 100% for the reshoot? How do you guys do that?
I feel like
I'm in the middle of that right now.
Against reshoots. I don't know.
Okay. Do you ask to then be paid fully for your work, and then you're like, this is just, we're not going to reshoot and I'm just not interested in working with you?
I feel like the only time I've reshot stuff for a brand was when I wasn't personally proud of the photos I shot. If I delivered something to a brand and I like was straight up honest, like, hey, like, I feel like I could do better than this, I'll reshoot it for the brand. But it really depends. I haven't been in those situations like too many times where I feel like a client like didn't like the photos and I needed to go reshoot it. It's more so like, hey, can you change the edit? Can we edit this differently? It doesn't really match what we post. And I'm able to fix the images with an edit. But like, I thought it was funny that this client, this recent client basically was like, instead of doing a reshoot, as if they thought I was going to reshoot it. Like, if they didn't like the photos, I was just going to tell them basically like F off. I wasn't going to reshoot the photos for $1,500. But if it's a high-paying client, for sure, and they wanted a reshoot, you would just have to see if it was worth, like, if the budget was worth the reshoot and the time spent doing a whole nother thing for them. And, like, did you really miss the mark? Like, that's an important thing. Like, in your case and in my case, too, I feel like I didn't miss by enough to warrant a reshoot. If I shot something so different than what they obviously wanted, then, I probably should reshoot it. You know what I mean? But I feel like in both of our cases, it sounds like we shot pretty spot on to what the client was asking for. And I don't think like it's fair for us to do a reshoot in that case. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. Georgia, you were saying that you're in the middle of this right now?
Yeah, it's a little different, but I guess not really. So basically I had to shoot, mine wasn't photo, mine's video. I had to shoot kind of like just like a villa tour for this Airbnb. And like the client isn't like crazy or anything, but basically, I was supposed to get to the Airbnb and have all day to shoot, like from literally morning until sunrise. So that way I could cover the entire villa, get drone at sunset, like just cover all my bases. But he didn't let me into the Airbnb until like 4 p.m. and sunset was at 4:45. And I literally had 45, like I was like outside waiting to get into this Airbnb all day. And he was like, oh, I'm so sorry. Like the cleaners are are just taking forever. And I was like literally at a coffee shop, like with all my gear, just waiting. And I'm like checking in with him like every 30 minutes, like, hey, like I'm supposed to be there right now shooting. Like, can I at least come and do the drone if the cleaners are in there? Because I need to like get this done for you. Like, this is the only day that we set up where I can shoot. This was like right before the holidays. And long story short, he just kept pushing it. I didn't get until 4 p.m. I wasn't able to get the drone up because I was also just me. My business partner wasn't with me. So like I had to go shoot like the entire house, and the lighting just, it wasn't what he wanted. It wasn't what his vision wanted, but it was ultimately his fault. He didn't let me in the fucking house. So like the footage, it's still good, but it doesn't have that like sunset dreamy like appeal that he wanted because I only basically had honestly like 30 minutes after getting in there and setting everything up, and I didn't have time to get drone because also I couldn't stay the night because there was somebody coming in the morning. So I'm like,
what kind of weird organization is that?
Yeah.
What?
That's what I mean. That's what I mean. Mine's like a little bit like weird because it wasn't like it's like this company that has several houses in Joshua Tree, and like the guy is sweet, but like he's just, I don't know. So now I'm going through this whole thing where we edited what we could together. And like, again, it's not a bad video. Like it's a good video still, but it just doesn't have that look that he wanted. And now he's not happy because he's like, well, I like this video, but I want it to be at sunset. And before I shot it and after I shot it, I'm trying to explain to him, you do realize you didn't give me any time. Like we accounted for the whole day. You gave me 30 minutes. Like, what do you want me to do? So now like, I'm in the process of figuring out, obviously I'm going to have to go back and almost reshoot it, but like, I don't know if I'm going to make him pay the full price or just like make him pay some so I can get like gas and come back out there. So, because it's weird because it's a smaller brand. Like if it was a bigger brand, I would be like, all right, you fucked up. Like you should have a whole team working together. But it's like kind of like a mom and pop business that we ultimately just decided to take on as a last minute thing just for extra money towards the holidays. And now I'm like, well, this is why I don't work with these people anymore. I kind of forgot.
But mom and pop still fucked up. You know what I mean? Like I feel like I wouldn't make them. If it were me, I would not make him repay like a whole shoot. If you can salvage some of the footage from the first one and just go back specifically to get like drone sunset footage, maybe charge him like a little bit more, but also like explain to him like, hey, like I was available for the shoot all day, waiting to get in here all day. I spent a whole day just waiting to get into your Airbnb. Like you gotta work with me a little bit. If you want me to come back and shoot this, like it's got to be on your dime. Like you got to pay me something to come back and shoot it. You know what I mean?
Exactly, because it's not like it's in LA, like right next to me. Like I have to drive all the way to Joshua Tree and then all the way back to LA, like in the same day. So yeah, I think that's kind of where my head's at, where I'm not going to make them pay the full rate, but they have to give me something because I am going to have to go back up there and at least do drone.
Yeah, yeah. Dude,
so
it's crazy how like the logic is just not there when it comes to creative projects with non-creative people. It's so common sense. But again, I think just people don't understand what it takes, I guess. They don't get it.
The sunset at 5? You'll have 30 minutes to get everything I want. And I'm like, yeah. You're so
They're like,
right.
can't
Why
you
didn't I
drone
think of that?
and shoot at the same time?
Forgot
like,
I could,
just drone on with one hand and then take pictures with the other hand. Like, shouldn't be that complicated.
You know what's crazy? I was thinking that. I was like, if I put my drone in the air and I just let it sit there, I can at least get like a standstill shot that I could like edit in later while I go into that. Like, I was literally thinking, how am I going to do this?
That would stress me out too. And it's almost like it's such unnecessary stress had they just planned for that better. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But like the common sense
I don't
to
know
say
why
that
the
like
cleaner
your
was in there
video's
for
not good
8
enough.
hours.
Yeah. No, that's, oh my God.
Yeah.
That's a tough one because you're saying it's a really small brand too. So I understand like the thought process being tough there. Because if that was a big
you want to
brand,
screw them
I'd been
over.
like, yeah, you don't want to screw them over. But like a big brand, I'd 100% be like, dude, you're paying me again because this I had to redo this whole thing because of you. Yeah. Damn, that's so frustrating.
Reshoots are great.
To finish off this episode, Max, I'm curious, what is the story you told us about that brand reaching out, is that the craziest email you've ever gotten? Like, what's the craziest ask you've ever gotten from a potential client?
Or when you like felt the most taken advantage of with a brand?
I mean, I'm sure there's been some crazy ones out there because I've been doing this for a while now, but I feel like the the hotel one that I mentioned was like the most recent, like laughable.
Yeah.
Between this whole beverage company and then that like hotel company, like I'm like, okay, this is, I'm done with this. It makes me
Yeah.
rethink my career sometimes. You know what I mean?
Yeah, truly.
Like sometimes I'm like, should I be doing this? Like this is super frustrating.
Yeah.
And so I've actually been thinking about this for a while, but I've got kind of different goals headed into this year, in terms of like expansion and probably almost like an exit route to content creation. So I'm hoping to pursue some different things this year.
Okay. Are we allowed to know
Ooh.
any little details, or is this
A
like a to be
cliffhanger.
I mean,
continued?
it's not really a secret, but it's my end goal with what I've been doing is to have my own creative agency. Like I'm so tired of working with
Ooh.
agencies for brands. I've had so many bad experiences where like agencies like this, like they don't know what they're doing.
Yeah.
And it's always people that I feel like are not content creators, but like just like you're saying, like you have to like work these other parts before you can get to a certain level. And I feel like the end level for me is like running an actual agency where I'm helping land work for other content creators, but then giving them fair rates and like understanding the amount of workload that this puts on them. I just think I feel like I could just do it so much better than not every agency. I'm not trying to like be the best agency in the world. I just want to like have one that's just working well. You know what I mean? And is really fair to content creators. There's also like, I'm in the Bay Area. I feel like there's not much.
I was just
here
gonna
in the
say
Bay
you could
Area.
take over the Bay Area.
Yeah.
That's kind of the goal. Is like I definitely want it planted here. I'm actually meeting with a couple people I want on my team tomorrow night, which is really
Oh,
cool.
exciting.
So it's starting to get a little bit more serious, but this is definitely the year where I want to like get something else going. Because also like, how long can I keep this up for? You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
just turned 29. Natasha's definitely looking to have some kids soon in the future. But I'm like, once I'm like a full on dad, like for reference, we got a puppy like two and a half weeks ago. And already it's been nearly impossible to do most of my work. Like extremely hard. Yeah. She had to wake up because she works nights. She had to wake up just to watch the puppy so I could do this podcast. But like once we have like future children and stuff like that, I'm like, how am I going to keep being like a content creator? Like most of my work right now has been like lately has been travel. So I'm like, I can't just like ditch my family and go to Costa Rica for a week to work with a travel board. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that's not going to work once I'm like in my 40s. So I'm like, I need to start building the exit route now. It's kind of what I've been really thinking about.
That's
the long-term
clever.
stuff. The last 10 years, I've been such a short-term guy. I'm like, short term, like whatever's working right now, this is awesome. And then like, I feel like I'm getting closer to 30 and now I'm like, okay, I really should start having better long-term goals.
I mean, the stability is attractive, right? Like that's one of the main things about being a creator that's the most difficult, at least for me. It's like the instability and like things constantly change. You don't know where your income's coming from. Like a retainer might end at any point. You don't know what gig you're going to have next month. And so building out that long-term stable income, even still within the creative industry, but like as an agency is brilliant because like at the end of the day, we all want to work less and make more money. And like, you can't keep doing like the smaller projects or even like the on-the-go projects for the rest of your life. And I'm in the same boat as you. I'm like, I'm nearing 30 and I'm like, I would like to have a little bit more stability in my life. So so I totally get it. But hey, I'm super excited for you, Max. I feel like you're gonna absolutely slay whatever agency you create. And like also doing it in the Bay Area is so smart because if you could niche down to like a specific area and just conquer that area, you don't need to be a world-renowned agency like you could be, but like realistically you can do so well just by like killing it. Big fish, small pond, like that's the way to go. So I'm stoked for you, Max. That sounds really exciting.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the pod. This has been seriously so fun and like
thanks
so
for
much
having me.
relatability and I think a lot of people are just gonna be really happy to be able to relate and hear stories that they've also felt. So very much appreciated.
I hope your listeners can relate to a lot of the stuff we talked about because talking about it with other creators has definitely been so helpful for me.
Yeah, 100%. I'm sure they will.
This is a great episode.
Where can our audience find you? Where can they keep up with you, follow your work, see everything that you're doing?
Mainly Instagram, at Max Loew, Loew. That E always there's a guy, this is kind of funny. There's a guy on Instagram who's max.low and it's Lowe, and he is a Nat Geo photographer.
No way.
One of my clients was Nat Geo, so we're like in that same world. But I feel like
funny.
a lot of times I'll give people like my Instagram and then they always think it's Lowe, and then they find that guy and they follow him. And I've had people been like, dude, I've been following the wrong guy for like 3 months now.
Oh,
and I'm like, great. Yeah, I called him out one time in a story, and I was like, "Dude, you're stealing all my followers," like as a joke. And he like commented back. He was actually like the nicest dude. He seems really cool.
That's
but,
so funny.
yeah,
That's so funny. Whoever
Yeah.
follows like the wrong Max, they're like, why
Yeah.
does this guy like look so different than when I saw him the
yeah,
other day?
right.
Like,
Looks
I
different,
thought-
but he also
I thought
posts
he
like the guy
didn't have
posts
hair.
good
Like,
photos.
what's going on?
Yeah, no, my hair came back. Alopecia's done. No, but the guy posts like really good photos, but I feel like a lot of it's like ski and stuff. Like it's always like, I think he's like a climber too, like an ice climber. I don't know. I haven't
you.
looked into him in a while, but I'm sure half
Gotta check up
your
on your
audience
friend
will when they
Max.
try and follow me. Yeah.
That's funny.
That's
So
great.
Loew for anybody listening.
Yeah. And on TikTok, same thing on TikTok. Yeah.
Amazing. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Max. This was awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you everyone for tuning in. You can find us on all social media platforms at shootyourshot_podcast on Instagram. We are also on YouTube. This is all recorded video. So please head to our YouTube, subscribe, and check out, everything that we have on there, and generally do all the things that you do to support a podcast that you love. And on that, thank you guys so much.
Yeah,
We'll see you
thanks,
next time.
guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Shoot your shot. Shoot your shot.